Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on Gran Turismo 7. We're back with another video to try and help you out, and this hopefully will help you out not just this week's daily race seat, but future races with dynamic weather and also future GT World Series with dynamic weather. So we're going to be talking about the racing line in wet conditions, and this is something that Eve and I was not really fully aware of because it was never really a factor in the past, because the weather used to move at such a rate that the track would dry out so quick. And also they changed something in a patch a while ago with the way following cars work. So it used to be a case that if you had 3 cars in front of you, you just followed the racing line, because they used to kick up the race so much that it would dry the track out for you, and you didn't really have a benefit of going off the racing line. However, since they've patched that in a couple of months ago, we've been able to, this week has really given an opportunity to test this out now. And we saw, I think, Calster doing it, we saw some other drivers doing similar things with the wet racing line, and it is really a massive difference. You really do need to start using this when it starts raining, because you are going to go seconds quicker over a lap than if you take the normal racing line on Gran Turismo 7. Now, iRacing has recently added this in, and there's a massive claim here about how amazing it is. It is very good on iRacing, I've seen it, and it is a little bit more in depth in terms of the actual line that you drive on actually dries the track up. However, on GT, that isn't the case, because on Gran Turismo, it's a scripted line that dries. But the wet weather line does work, and it works extremely well on GT7. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to be in the middle of the track here, off the racing line to brake. And I'm braking close to my dry reference there, because there's just so much more grip off the racing line. And I can actually brake like normal. And this is going to gain you so much time in the braking zones. And also through the corners, when you just keep the car off the racing line slightly, go a little bit wider, gives you that extra bit of grip. Now, this is my first lap attempting a lap doing these kind of lines. You see again in the middle of the track, going a little bit deeper, going out to the full width of the track, squaring it off, and then finding that grip when you're accelerating. You really feel it. It's not a little amount of grip, you feel the extra grip. If you're on the racing line accelerating, you'll hear your car spinning up a lot. If you get off the racing line when you're accelerating, you'll notice your car will grip a lot more. So again, off the racing line for the braking phase, down to 3rd gear, back up to 4th gear for the acceleration. Again, through this corner, you kind of have to take a normal racing line because of the way the corner is. There's not too much options for that one there. You can go a little bit deeper like I did on the first part. And again, into this braking reference, stay out wide, don't cut in too early. Now, I went really wide here, probably a little bit wider than you should, but I'm just experimenting to see where the grip is. And I was surprised, even that wide, there was a considerable amount of grip available. And again, into this corner, you can see again, we're going to go a little bit wider than the racing line, keep it in the middle of the track, and then there's more grip as we get on the throttle, able to put the foot right down. Again, on this corner, try and get it so that you're accelerating to the right here if you can, not on the racing line, because if you get that, you'll get a lot more traction all the way up this long straight into the final chicane. So this was my first attempt at it, just experimenting with it. I'm going to go through some more in-depth after I've done this lap. I've showed you what happens in comparison with a lap when you're taking the normal racing line. So we're going to go to the line. This is our first ever attempt. Now you can see the conditions are fairly similar to what this week's daily race seat is at when it rains. It's virgin on blue. It's quite wet here. These are not very nice conditions. Again, I'm going to try and get that power down here and not go all the way to the right, because I want to try and get off the racing line for the acceleration. And we see we go over the line with 45 flat. We've been doing 46s mainly in these kind of conditions, and that's our first attempt at doing it. Now what I'm going to do now is just try and take the normal racing line. You can see there straight away I actually braked on the actual racing line, it didn't grip, and I actually went too deep, which probably actually helped me a little bit on the acceleration phase because I got off the racing line. But now through here I actually managed to hook it up reasonably nicely going through this corner, because obviously this is, you're going to take a set racing line here every time. I went really well through there and actually nailed that. So the first sector, we're going to be up on the previous lap purely because I've just gone on Rouge amazingly. But watch the difference as we come to the rest of the corner. So now I'm going to brake on the racing line. Look how much difference this is. I'm going to brake about the 150, which is a lot earlier than what I did before. But look, the car just does not want to slow down. It is actually crazy the difference that you get. Your car just will not slow down if you try and brake on the racing line versus the middle of the track. And again, going into the next braking zone, we're going to keep it on the racing line and try and brake pretty similar, but a little bit earlier again than what I was before. And you can see the car's sliding, it's starting to kick out, the rear's starting to lose control. Again, it kind of does lead us into the wider line because of that loss of grip. So a lot of it is braking off the racing line, and then taking that wide line will give you so much more grip. again now, as we come into the long left, again, we're going to brake just before, actually earlier than what I normally would, because we're on that racing line. You can see the grip is just nowhere near as high as what it was before. This is actually quite interesting because, like I say, it was a surprise to me. People were actually telling me in the chat, and I was like, no, it doesn't exist, because basically in previous races it wasn't really that beneficial, because if you had 5 cars in front of you, the spray used to kick off and you'd basically be having double the grip, and everyone would be within about 2 seconds of each other throughout all 16 cars. Now that they fixed that, we're really seeing how in-depth the weather feature is on Gran Turismo 7, and it's actually pretty in-depth. Like I say, it's not iRacing level, but it's doing the wet line very, very well from what I can see. Again, you can see trying to put the power down on that racing line, and the rear is just going to snap, and that's what issue I've been having when it's got to this level of wet in a race on this week's Daily Race C. I really hope this can help a lot of you out in terms of finding pace, because I've found just insane amount of grip from taking this wet line. And again, after watching Corsair, credit to Corsair for his lines he was doing, he was really nailing it. It looks like he's got used to it, and it's something we're going to have to practice more and more and more and get better at doing. So again, let's have a little look at the difference between these lap times when I've been trying to race on the racing line. Again, you can see trying to get the power down on that racing line, just didn't want to grip. And you can see over the line, nearly 2 seconds slower. That is actually crazy. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go through a lap. I carried on doing 2 more laps, just experimenting with different lines, trying different stuff out. And I'm going to try and go through and just point out some of the stuff that we do versus the normal racing line. So we join this now at the end of my second attempt at a wet line, and I think we actually managed to get into the 44s here. Now I try a few different things on the next lap, which some work, some don't work, and you're going to be able to see that in the lap time as well. So let's go over the line. You can see again we get into the 44.8, which again is an improvement considering that's our second lap at trying to do wet weather, and I've not gotten near a 44 in these conditions, so it's actually crazy. So now what we've got in front of us is a representation of your normal racing line, the purple versus the blue wet line, and you can see the difference in the straighter braking phase, and then the using the outside line and then squaring the car off and then finding the traction off the racing line. This is one thing that I'm noticing. If you try and get the power down on the racing line, your rears are going to spin up. If you try and get the power down slightly off the racing line, even if it's just 2 tyres off, it will really help with your momentum out of them corners. So give it a go. Experiment with different lines. It is actually going to work, and it's actually made this week's daily race even more interesting in my personal opinion. I actually can't wait to try this out now when we get the next wet weather race and test different lines out and try different things. So again, going into this really heavy braking zone, we're going to keep it more centered versus the purple line, which will be on the outside, and you can just see the extra grip I get now from using that offline braking phase. Again, as we come through here, we're going to take a slightly wider line as we normally would. We'd normally get it right up to the curb. We're going to just try and avoid the curb slightly and then just get that power down again into the middle of the track, and again braking in that middle part rather than on the racing line. And then what we're going to do again, instead of hogging it nice and tight to the curb, we're going to let the car just go really deep and then square the car off where the grip is. This is where all the grip is on this corner. You're going to find massive amount of time doing that there. And again into the next braking phase, just very cautious here. You just got to kind of follow the normal line, because you can slightly take a slight wider line, but it's not too far from the normal racing line, because if you try and go too far wide there, you're going to run on the curb. Now again through here into the middle of the track, get the braking phase done in the middle and let the car run wide into 4th gear and accelerate through the corner as normal. And again on the exit here, you're going to have to try and follow basically the racing line, and it is going to be slippery because that is the only line you can really go through on the exit. But through here I decided to experiment with a slightly tighter line than what I've done before, compared to that really wide line. Now this actually lost me time, because you can see the car, because we're trying to accelerate on the racing line, got a little bit loose, and I actually lose a bit of time there compared to the previous attempt. You can see I've done a 44.8, and again into this corner we got the power down quite nice there, used the wide line, but I'm a tenth down there. And again, as I got the power here, I put the power down a little bit too aggressive on that racing line and loses the rear, and that's another tenth or 2 gone. However, I really wanted to experiment into the final corner with braking really late and using that middle line and just trying to then take a reasonably normal line, but get on the power and go to the left of the track. So keep your eye on this now. What we're going to do here is we're going to go into the braking phase, and we're going to brake very late for these conditions in the middle of the track, and I managed to slow it down with no issue at all. down to first gear, take a normal line here now. There's not really much you can do there. Up to second gear early. But then you're going to see I'm going to accelerate and go over to the left-hand side of the track as I accelerate to try and avoid that racing line. And you get much better grip. And we actually take a tenth out from probably being 2 tenths to 3 tenths down and pretty much match the previous lap. So again, experimenting, finding different lines, trying different exits with different approaches into the corners as well. It's really going to find you time on this week's Daily Race C, and I'm really excited for more of these type of races now that we have the better system that PD have implemented with the patch, with the way the track dries up, and also the slower moving weather. This really does show you how in depth PD went in terms of creating a very realistic weather system. It's just the only thing that I wish they would have done is dry the track out based on where you're driving. That is one thing that Gran Turismo 7 is missing, but maybe Gran Turismo 8 can implement. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section if any of this advice is going to help you out. I'll be really interested to find out if some of you try this out, and then let me know in feedback, because from my experience, what I've tried, it's a massive difference. Take care, everyone. Bye.